Hello, today I'm going to tell you about how to make pumpkin bread out of a whole pumpkin. So first you're going to need to find yourself a whole pumpkin. You can get this from a family friend, or you can go to the store and buy a pumpkin for cooking. You're going to need to cut the pumpkin in half. I would recommend using a pretty big knife. It takes some elbow grease. Once you get the pumpkin open, you can take a minute to appreciate how orange it is, and then it's time to clean it out. Grab a bowl to put all the guts in, and then you're ready to start. I actually just went right in and used my hands for most of it, and I got all those pumpkin seeds out and the pumpkin guts. If you do end up saving the seeds, you could roast those for later and they'd be really tasty. Once you get most of the guts out, you can grab a sharp spoon or an ice cream scoop and scrape everything out so that it gets really clean. So your next step is going to be to cover the pumpkin in oil. I used olive oil. You can definitely use a pastry brush or something like that, but I just used my hands to cover it. Make sure I got all of the inside of the pumpkin covered in oil, and then oil the pan and put the pumpkin on the pan. Then it was time to put it into a 350-degree oven for about an hour.
You're probably wondering how I ended up here. Well, you're all caught up. Back to the recipe now.
When your pumpkin's been in the oven for about an hour or so, it's a good idea to start checking it. You might have to rotate it, depending on how heat distributes in your oven. If you try and poke a fork in the skin of the pumpkin, it should slide in easy. If it does, that means your pumpkin's done and ready to take it out. When a fork slides easily into the pumpkin when you poke it, that means it's done and it's ready to take it out. Be careful, there will be a lot of liquid on the pan and a lot of steam coming out of the pumpkin. It's a good idea to let the pumpkin sit for about 10 minutes to cool down at this point. Once you've let it cool down and it's ready to go, you can grab that same ice cream scoop or sharp spoon that you used before and start scooping out all of the pumpkin. Be careful, it's still going to be very hot at this point, so try not to burn yourself. Get as much pumpkin out as you can. You can really scrape the skin for all of the pumpkin and put it into another container. Once you have as much pumpkin as you can get out of both sides, that's it, you're done. You've roasted your pumpkin and you're ready to start making your pumpkin bread. The first step to making pumpkin bread is to puree your pumpkin in a blender. I'm using a mini blender that my roommate has, but if you don't have one, I've made pumpkin bread without pureeing it and it works out just fine. Once your pumpkin is pureed, you're going to need to measure out a cup of pumpkin for the recipe. Before you get started mixing up ingredients, make sure that you spray your pan and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. The first ingredient that you'll add is the pumpkin. This will be the first component to the wet ingredients. Next, you'll add a half a cup of vegetable oil, half a cup of brown sugar, 1 whole cup of white sugar, a 1/4 cup of water, and 2 eggs. Thoroughly mix together all of your wet ingredients. Next, add 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Next, you'll add 1 teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, and a mixture of spices, including 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and a half a teaspoon of ground cardamom. And then you'll mix all of your dry ingredients into your wet ingredients, just until it's not lumpy anymore. Don't overmix, or else your bread will be tough. Once your ingredients are all mixed up, grab the bread pan that you sprayed with oil before, and then pour in your batter. It's time to put your bread in the oven. Again, make sure your oven is at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you'll bake the bread for about 55 minutes. Make sure to check on your bread periodically. If you insert a wooden skewer or a knife into the middle and it comes out clean, that means it's done and time to take it out of the oven. After you take it out and let it cool for a while, it's time to take your bread out of the pan. And that's it, you're done. You've successfully roasted a pumpkin, pureed it, and made pumpkin bread out of it. Enjoy! Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you have a chance to try out this fun recipe that's perfect for fall.